And I'm an INTP, and I'm currently reading a book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a philosophical fiction book, so it's fictional, but rather than kind of focusing on the story or the characters, it's really kind of just a venue for the author to put forth his ideas. Kind of similar to the Atlas Shrugged or the Fountainhead, where the key point of the book is the ideas. So I've gotten a lot of insight from this book, and I thought I would share it because I think some of the insight might be applicable to or useful to other INTPs. And right before I was going to make this video, I actually just Googled the book, just kind of because I was curious to see what other people thought about it. And interestingly, everybody on the internet seems to have typed the author as an INTP as well, which makes perfect sense. I guess I just hadn't put two and two together. I figured he was some type of NT, but I hadn't really thought about it. And so that's kind of cool, because I don't know, there's not too many of us out there in the world, and so it kind of makes sense that I would love this book, because it was written by a fellow INTP. So, a lot of great ideas in this book. I just wanted to focus on one idea in particular for this video, and basically it's this theme throughout the book about technology and how we view technology, and in particular he thinks that most people kind of have the wrong attitude towards technology. So the plot of the book has to do with the narrator going on this motorcycle trip with his son and with two of his friends who are a married couple. And the narrator is always kind of just cognizant of his motorcycle and what, he might need to be, like, what could be going wrong with the motorcycle, and, it's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, so he's really just thinking about how the motorcycle is performing, because it's this multi-week, I think, motorcycle trip, and so the motorcycle's getting a lot of strain, and so every day when they're out, at some point he'll kind of like just start listening to his motorcycle and seeing, like, is he hearing anything strange, like, is he hearing like any kind of like weird stuttering, like, things are smacking against each other, or any like high-pitched noises, anything that just doesn't seem right, he's paying attention to. And if they're in more extreme weather conditions like rain or really, really hot weather, he's paying attention to how that's affecting the bike, and if it's really hot, he'll touch certain, like near the engine or whatnot, so that he can get a sense of how hot is it right now, is it going to overheat, are we going to break down soon? Whereas his friends don't pay attention to that at all. They don't even want to think about it. They just kind of want to use their motorcycles and just kind of assume that everything is good to go until it gets to the point where a motorcycle has actually broken down. And then if their motorcycle ever does break down or, have some sort of, thing that needs fixing, they always take it into mechanics, and they never try to, fix anything for themselves. And that attitude really frustrates the narrator. Not just that they don't really take accountability and don't want to be, the ones personally fixing the motorcycle, but also because they seem like scared or resentful of if he tries to, tell them like, oh, your motorcycle's broken down, but it's probably because of this, and like we can open your bike and we can look at it together, and we can totally fix this, that sort of attitude. They kind of just shut him down. Like, they don't want to think about how their motorcycle is working. They don't really want to understand it. And the author kind of suggests that that's true of other areas of our life too. So we just are constantly using technology nowadays, and we don't really understand how it works, and we also don't really want to understand how it works. He's got this great quote where he's talking about these mechanics who he took his motorcycle to, but who just weren't very good mechanics, and they kept not actually understanding the problem with his bike, and because they weren't really thinking through it, not very deeply, they were just kind of going through the motions or applying these really simplistic rules that they had learned. And so they, even though they were mechanics, they themselves didn't have this very full, comprehensive understanding of a motorcycle, and that led them to kind of make the wrong decisions and not fix the bike, and in fact even hurt the bike even more. So he's got this quote where he's describing them, and he says, "They were good-natured, friendly, easygoing, and uninvolved. They were like spectators." And the quote is particularly about the mechanics, but he really, it's a good description of how he thinks of most people, and his issue with most people in modern society, which is that we have all become these spectators. So again, using technology, we don't even understand how it works. We tend to be, have really passive hobbies like watching TV, and even our kind of more active hobbies, we're not truly engaging with. We're just kind of following a rule book, and we're really hesitant to put real thought into anything, I guess. So then he goes on to talk about technology and how he thinks about technology and why, he is much more comfortable with technology. He understands it a lot better, and he, likes that. And he thinks it's because the way he thinks about technology is very different than the way that other people think about technology. Basically, he's been talking about this example of a motorcycle, and then he's talking about how people view motorcycle and how they break it down to their parts, and they think, a motorcycle is made up of these, various parts, but that's about as far as they break down a motorcycle when it comes to thinking about what it really is. So he says, they associate metal with given shapes: pipes, rods, girders, tools, parts, all of them fixed and inviolable, and think of the motorcycle as primarily physical. But these shapes are all out of someone's mind. Hell, even the steel is out of someone's mind. There is no steel in nature. So basically what he's saying is he breaks it down much further than other people. So other people think, oh, there's this pipe, there's this bolt, and these are just things that exist. And they don't really think about why those things exist. And for him, he sees a pipe and a bolt as concepts brought to life. So basically, pipes aren't, they didn't exist when humans came to being. They're things that we invented. And so are bolts. And then he goes even further than that, and he says even steel, which the pipe and the bolt are made of steel, and even steel, it doesn't exist in nature. It's literally a human invention, and therefore it's kind of was a concept in somebody's mind. And in that way, he's kind of able to bridge the gap between technology and kind of operating in the physical world and connect that with theorizing, and analytical thinking. And so I've lost my train of thought. Okay. Alright, I'm back, and I remember my final point, which is kind of just to relate this all back to being an INTP and why I particularly liked this idea. So, personally, I relate much more to John and Sylvia in that I have always been a little bit antagonistic towards technology, not using it, but just really understanding it, and to the external world in general. And I think in some ways that's kind of a typical INTP trait. We love to theorize and we really live in our heads. It's that introverted thinking. And the stereotypical INTP is a philosopher or a dreamy professor. So we're very logical, we're very rational, but we tend to be a little bit clumsier out in the outside world. That's why we come off as dreamy. And we also tend to be scientists, but the most famous INTP scientist was Einstein, who wasn't a lab scientist. He was, totally in the world of ideas. He just sat at his patent office and thought about energy and time all day. He has kind of rethought or reframed technology and man-made objects into concepts. He says, really, they're just concepts. Like, somebody thought up the concept of a motorcycle, somebody thought up the concept of a bolt and a nut, and somebody thought up the concept of steel. And in addition to that, he shows through his examples of fixing his motorcycle that even though, when you're fixing a motorcycle, you need to listen for weird sounds, and you need to be kind of like looking and seeing if anything seems weird, if anything is loose, whatever it is. That is such a small part of motorcycle maintenance. It's just like you just need to gather a little bit of physical data, and that really the important part of motorcycle maintenance, the way he frames it, is once you have that little bit of physical data, you're thinking about it with your whole conceptual, view of what a motorcycle is, and how it all works, and you're saying, okay, well, if this one thing is a little bit loose, then, what could have caused that? Oh, it must have been caused by this other part of the motorcycle, which, must be vibrating too much, which then loosened this thing. And so basically, most of the fixing of the motorcycle is in your head. It's really understanding how something works, and then being able to see when something is off and then understand how it all fits together,